Keep in mind that every life you touch, every conversation that you have, and every project you contribute to, it has a lasting digital and human footprint of some kind. Well, it's MB, and thank you for tuning in to the weekly vlog. And no matter if you are currently pivoting or about to make a career pivot, remember this one truth, and that is that your signature spark is always recording, and you should be capturing it today. Well, as I continue working through the in-between myself on my current intentional pivot, I'm working on the project plan that I have set up and established and click it every day because it's up. I have said this previously, and that is that a pivot is a project. And during our time together, I'm going to continue touching on the strategies that are working and the strategies that aren't within the epic buckets of the pivot project itself. Today, I'm going to be sharing the subtasks within Epic Bucket number 2, personal branding, in hopes that this series will really add value to you on your journey. And I would be so honored to have you click like below and subscribe so that we can travel together for a little bit. So today, bucket number 2, or the Agile project management word, the Epic, builds on a bucket really that we talked about last week, the health and wellness. In bucket number that I like to title the personal branding bucket, not because it's sexy, not because it's interesting, not because it's unique, but because it's familiar. And why it's essential, why I have it as one of the top buckets in the project is because so many of us, I know I have been laser focused on our careers and our companies and building the brands of others. They could be executives or entrepreneurs, even a product, key stakeholders. We invest our time in promoting their strengths, their values, and lifting them up, which is 100% appropriate a lot of the times. Why? Because it's oftentimes our job and it's not about us. And as staff members, it's more of a collective. However, just like we shouldn't neglect our personal wellness as we're at work, at play, we shouldn't overlook our personal brand either. The corporate buzzwords aside, let's just say it this way. Our echo is what people say when they're in a safe place, when we are not in the room. Now, you might be thinking like my son did when we were having this conversation last week, which is, well, Mom, it kind of depends which room you're in and who is in it as far as what they would say. And that's very, very true. That's absolutely correct. And you know what? We have no control or power over that, no influence whatsoever. People are going to form their own conclusions. And, you know, that can be a bit of a sticking point sometimes especially if we're in a job pivot or even a relationship pivot for that matter. If anybody who's been through a painful breakup knows, you know, that you've got to let that stuff go. But the focus on today is what we can control regarding our personal brand, or if not, we allow it to form accidentally, which is why whether you're pivoting today or you're going to pivot tomorrow, my strongest advice, capture your personal brand assets in real time. And if you remember one thing, just one thing that I say today, this is it. Capture your personal brand assets in real time. I learned that lesson hardcore last week, and I'm going to tell you about that in a little bit. But seriously, has anybody ever asked you this question? What would you say to younger you? Well, this would be mine, especially after what happened last week, because whether your pivot is slight or 180 degrees like mine, a slight pivot, an almost pivot, this takeaway is for everybody, which is why I'm going to tell you in a moment. You know, why that is the case and why I was compelled to share that today. But before I do that, I want to quickly just go through the 5 key subtopics in the professional and personal brand epic bucket. Because for that, the methodology that I've applied, you know, successfully day in and day out, starts out with really the number 1, which I think is, you know, you've heard it before, leaders or readers, but I would just say daily reading, 15 to 20 minutes, personal brand books. I wanted to share these with you. The classic personal brand book by Gary Vaynerchuk, Crush It. It's fantastic. Digital Marketing Known by Mark Schaefer is another really good one. I heard and have heard a lot of things read about personal branding for dummies. Haven't read it personally by Susan Crichton. Again, that's another one that's been referred. Now, Wealthy and Well Known, I got a copy of that sent to me by the author, Rory and AJ Vaden. And so this has been a very great resource to add to my library. They also have a podcast. And then a newer book by my good friend Mary Lou Kaiser, It's Not You, It's the Algorithm. These five books are ones you can get started with, and maybe you already have some in your library to brush up on if you're thinking about your personal brand and making it more powerful. The second item, the second subtopic is setting up a personal branding matrix. And this is super, super, super simple. Four columns: remarkable, measurable, distinguished, and distinctive. Just put those headers up there. And then you're going to have the fun part. You're going to talk to 5 to 10 people that you know, people who will be honest with you, not tell you what you want to hear, that will be honest with you to help you define your brand. And that's what I did, when I first got into the pivot, made a few calls and had those conversations. And I added what they said to those four columns in the branding matrix. And I added them to what people say to me personally, maybe after a talk or after a meeting, at some point when we come into contact with each other. And then I tried to just like sift and sort it down so that there was one word in each column that really needed to be present in our personal brand. And that is a great exercise. So, for example, for me, remarkable, energy and passion. People are always talking about my high energy and my passion, constantly about what is remarkable. What is measurable? I have over 3 decades of success experience in direct selling. That is something that we can measure. What is distinguished? About me, people will say authenticity. Even in an interview situation, they say that they appreciate my authenticity, which makes me kind of the pivots into the distinguished, and from that into distinctive. And that is, I'm approachable and human. So again, those are my words. So what are your words? What words do you want to own? What words are authentic and make sense for you? The third subtopic that you should be thinking about if you want to enhance this area of your personal brand is digital alignment footprint. And this was something that again, immediately when I was making my pivot, I just started looking at all my social presence and making sure that they were aligned so that if people saw me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, wherever, it would be consistent and I was the same person. And sometimes there's just little weird nuances that you don't even notice that you might want to correct. So take a look at your social media and write down really maybe 3 words that pop out to you if you were stepping out of the equation and looking at it as if you were looking at a different person, and compare those 3 words that jump and say, do they align with how I want to be seen, that really makes sense for me, that resonates with me? And that will again give you some clues right there. The fourth subtopic is brand agency alignment. And this is where I wanted to bring in my story because this was my lesson last week. I knew that I needed major focus here. And so I brought in a professional agency to help me here. I know that most people are not going to go to that extent. However, at the beginning of my pivot, I knew that what I was pursuing wasn't going to be what could I do, what should I do, but what would I do if I had the freedom to create a new chapter. And so because of that, I brought in the experts, right, to help me with this. And so my aha moment came last week. It was extremely compelling for me, and I wanted to share it with you, dear listener. And so I flew to Texas to talk about a number of topics, to talk about my brand, to talk about my upcoming book, the direction for the next 5 years. And this happened during the one-on-one session after we were talking about who I am, my dreams, my priorities, all those great things. The question, and I'm paraphrasing here, came up. So MB, how have you captured your life's work or some of your highlights to share with us today? And I sat there and I thought about it, little deer in the headlight moment, and I started running through my mind all of the incredible things that have happened in my career. And I realized just as clear as day, I don't have anything really beyond my resume as far as a portfolio, as far as something I can put in front of these lovely people, to show them what I've done. And I felt really foolish at that moment. I was on the plane thinking more about it on the way back, about all the lost opportunities that I had. So many, the videos, I have given keynotes all over the world on stages up to 18,000 people. I have no recordings. I have no reels. I have no access to them, nothing. The presentations, they said, well, what about your presentations? And I thought, my gosh, I've given hundreds, probably thousands of them over the last 30 years. Sales systems that I've, helped to create and design with others, marketing collateral, things I'm really, really proud of, fabulous work. I don't have one slide. And then testimonials. Surely. But no, I mean, I have a couple here and there, but compared to the hundreds that I've gotten that I could have, had I been cognitive and just ask, had access to. And so, now I realize that as employees, when we're creating things, the IP belongs to the company. That's understood. That's a given. But hey, younger me, if I had asked for some generic B-roll, if I had maybe put in a little of my own money to ask for a few clips here and there to create just a short reel, something, taken even, a slide of the business in a box. When I created the first company that I ever joined when I was in direct selling, they're not even in business anymore. They surely wouldn't care. And so the biggest takeaway that I had that I wanted to say to all of you, I encourage you, if you're not already, and maybe you're just leaps and bounds saying, well, Meredith, yeah, Captain Obvious. However, if you're not, start capturing your personal assets in real time in a compliant way, of course. And for heaven's sakes, when you're taking those amazing adventures around the world, develop a social rhythm where you can share on your IG Reels. Do something again, unless your company is prohibiting it. So finally, the subtask, the last one in that epic bucket of my personal development is number 5, which is brand evolution. To do what? Increase the impact. And the way that I do that in my subtask, I have a handful of mentors and advisors that I trust, and they help me to just assess, to reflect, and to ideate so that I can take control of the professional narrative. And you can too, because it's an increasingly AI-driven world, and it has never, ever been more important. So, my friends, let's use this in between to move closer to our true purpose. And if this message resonates with you at all, please take a moment to like and subscribe below, and let's journey together for a little bit. And remember, the truest thing about you is what God says about you. You are beautifully and wonderfully created. And so until next week, when we're going to be looking at epic bucket number 3, networking, do everything with love.